The ship moved through the darkness of space like a silver needle through black cloth. It was called the Harmony's Edge, and it carried diplomats from 12 different species to a peace summit. The year was 2847, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Accord for only 200 years. In a galaxy where some species had traveled between stars for millions of years, humans were still considered children. Do-hyun sat alone in the communications room. The lights were dim, and the soft hum of machines filled the air. He was 34 years old, with tired eyes and careful hands. His job was simple. He listened to signals, sorted messages, and made sure nothing important was missed. Most of his colleagues, the tall Keth with their silver skin and the floating Vorath with their gas-filled bodies, thought his job was beneath them. They had machines for listening. Why would anyone need a human to do it? But Do-hyun liked the quiet. He liked the way the universe sounded when you paid attention. His communicator beeped. It was Yuna. "Come to my lab," she said. Her voice was strange. Not scared, but something close to it. "I found something." Do-hyun walked through the curved hallways of the ship. He passed diplomats in expensive robes talking about borders and trade. He passed crew members rushing to fix minor problems. Nobody looked at him twice. Humans were easy to ignore on ships like this. Yuna's lab was small and messy. She studied old languages, dead languages, the kinds of words that nobody spoke anymore. She had screens showing symbols that looked like twisted branches and sounds that had not been heard for thousands of years. She was 29, with short black hair and glasses that she never cleaned. "Listen to this," she said. She pressed a button. At first, Do-hyun heard nothing. Then, slowly, a sound began to form. It was low, so low that it seemed to vibrate in his chest rather than his ears. It was like the deep groan of a dying star, mixed with something that might have been words. "What is that?" he asked. "I don't know," Yuna said. "I was checking old frequency ranges. The ones nobody monitors because most species can't hear them. And I found this." She played it again. This time, Do-hyun focused. He could hear patterns in the noise, numbers, coordinates, and a phrase that repeated over and over like a heartbeat. "Can you translate it?" he asked. "I've been trying for 3 hours." Yuna pulled up her notes. "The language is old. Very old. It matches some fragments from precursor ruins." Do-hyun felt cold. Everyone knew about the precursors. They were the ancient ones, the species that had ruled the galaxy 3 million years ago before vanishing without explanation. Their ruins were scattered across 1,000 worlds. Their technology was beyond understanding, and their language was dead. "What does it say?" he asked. Yuna swallowed. "I only got pieces. But the phrase that repeats," she read from her screen. "We remember. We return. Silence the voices before they scream." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "We need to tell the captain," Do-hyun said. Ambassador Veloth was a Keth, tall and thin with skin like polished metal. He listened to their report with the patience of someone who had heard many foolish things from many foolish species. When they finished, he smiled the way adults smile at children who believe in monsters. "You found a signal on a frequency that our sensors cannot detect," he said. "A frequency so low that only humans can hear it. And you believe this signal is from the precursors, who have been dead for 3 million years. "Yes," Do-hyun said. "And you want me to do what exactly? Cancel the peace summit? Tell 12 species that their diplomats are in danger because of a sound that only 2 humans can hear?" "We're not making this up," Yuna said. Her voice was harder now. "The language matches. The coordinates point to Kethra Prime. Something is targeting the summit." Veloth shook his head slowly. "The Keth hear frequencies that humans cannot imagine. The Vara sense vibrations in ways your species will never understand. If there was a threat, we would know. This is nothing. Perhaps interference from a dying star. Perhaps your equipment is damaged." He stood, indicating the meeting was over. "Return to your duties. Do not spread panic with your ghost stories." They left in silence. In the hallway, Myra was waiting. She was young, only 25, with the kind of energy that made older people tired just watching her. She worked in engineering, fixing the old systems that nobody else wanted to touch. "I heard you found something weird," she said. "The whole ship is talking about the crazy humans with their invisible signal." "It's not invisible," Do-hyun said quietly. "They just can't hear it." Myra's smile faded. "You're serious?" "The summit is in 4 days," Yuna said. "Every major species will be gathered in one place. If I'm right about those coordinates, something is coming. And nobody will believe us because they can't hear what we hear." Myra looked at them both. She was young, but she was not stupid. She had learned long ago that humans were different. They heard things others missed. They felt things others ignored. The galaxy called it a weakness. But sometimes, Myra thought, it might be something else. "What do you need?" she asked. That night, while the diplomats slept and the ship sailed through the stars, 3 humans worked in secret. Yuna translated more of the signal. Do-hyun tracked its source, watching it grow stronger with each passing hour. And Myra began preparing for something she hoped would never come. In the darkness of space, the signal continued. It was not meant for human ears. It was not meant to be heard at all. But humans had always been good at hearing what they were not supposed to. And this time, they would not stay silent. Kethra Prime was the largest space station in the galaxy. It floated at the edge of contested space, a place where no species could claim ownership. Its metal halls stretched for hundreds of kilometers, filled with gardens and markets and chambers where the fate of worlds was decided. For 3 days, representatives from all 47 Accord species would gather here to discuss peace. Do-hyun stood at the viewport of the arriving shuttle, watching the station grow larger. It was beautiful. It was also, he knew, a target. Beside him, Yuna clutched her datapad. She had not slept in 2 days. The translation was complete now, and it was worse than they had feared. The signal was not just a warning. It was a countdown. They had 3 days. The shuttle docked, and they stepped into a world of noise and color. Aliens of every shape moved through the corridors. Some walked on 2 legs, some on 6. Some floated in special chambers filled with gas or liquid. The air smelled of 100 different worlds, and the sounds of 100 different languages filled their ears. Nobody noticed. 2 humans carrying a secret. They found Jisoo in the security office. She was 32 years old, with short hair and a scar on her chin from the border conflicts. She had been a soldier before becoming a security officer, and she still moved like one. When Do-hyun explained why they had come, she did not laugh. She did not dismiss them. She just listened. "Play it," she said. Yun played the signal. Jisoo's face did not change, but her hands tightened into fists. "I've heard stories," she said quietly. "Old spacers talk about ghost signals in deep space. Ships that received strange transmissions and then vanished without a trace. I always thought they were just stories." "They weren't," Do-hyun said. Jisoo stood and walked to her window. Outside, she could see the great hall where the summit would begin tomorrow. Thousands of diplomats. The most important people in the galaxy. All gathered in one place. "If I go to my superiors with this, they won't believe me," she said. "The Keth run security here. They can't hear your frequency. To them, it doesn't exist. Then what do we do?" Yuna asked. "We prepare quietly." Jisoo turned back to them. "I have people I trust. other humans in security. We can start moving weapons to key positions, set up evacuation routes, put emergency protocols in place. If nothing happens, we look foolish. If something happens, we might save lives. It was not much, but it was something. Do-Yoon's next meeting was harder. Admiral Taiwan was old now, his hair white and his movements slow. He had commanded fleets in his younger days. Now, he served as humanity's diplomatic attaché, a polite title for a position with no real power. He had an office on the station's lower levels, far from where the important decisions were made. He listened to their story without interruption. When Yuna played the signal, something changed in his eyes. It was not surprise. It was recognition. "Where did you hear this language before?" Do-Hyun asked. Taiwan was silent for a long moment. Then he walked to a cabinet and pulled out an old data crystal. He inserted it into his terminal, and images appeared on the screen. Ancient ruins, strange symbols, artifacts that looked like nothing any living species had ever built. 40 years ago, I led an expedition to a dead world in the Outer Rim, Taiwan said. We found precursor ruins there. Most of it was beyond our understanding. But we found recordings, audio files, preserved for millions of years. He looked at them with tired eyes. The language in those recordings matches your signal exactly. So the precursors are alive, Yuna whispered. They never died. Taiwan's voice was heavy. They went silent. There's a difference. Something made them stop talking. Or maybe they chose to stop. And now, after 3 million years, they're speaking again. Why now? Do-Hyun asked. Why target the summit? Because it's perfect. Taiwan gestured at the station around them. Every major species in one place. Every leader, every decision maker. If you wanted to control the galaxy, if you wanted to silence it, this is where you would start. The weight of his words hung in the air. We have 3 days, Yuna said. Then we work fast. Taiwan stood. And for a moment, Do-Hyun saw the admiral he used to be. I'll contact the other human delegations. We'll coordinate with Jisu's security teams. We'll monitor the signal and track its source. And if we're wrong? Do-Hyun asked. Taiwan smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then we apologize and go back to being ignored. But if we're right, he paused. If we're right, then we're the only ones who can hear what's coming. And that makes us the only ones who can stop it. That night, Do-Hyun sat in his temporary quarters, listening to the signal. It was stronger now, closer. He could hear more words, more patterns. The precursors were not just coming. They were angry. Yuna's translation echoed in his mind. We remember. We return. Silence the voices before they scream. The galaxy had 47 species, thousands of worlds, billions of voices. And someone wanted to silence them all. Do-Hyun looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between worlds, something ancient was waking up. It had slept for 3 million years, and now it was coming home, and he was one of the few who could hear it. He did not sleep that night. Instead, he listened, because that was what humans did. They listened when others could not. They heard what was not meant to be heard, and sometimes that made all the difference. The Great Hall of Kether Prime was filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They sat in floating chairs and special chambers, each delegation separated by invisible walls of old hatred and fresh distrust. The Keth argued with the Varath about trade routes. The Silmari accused the Dren of border violations. 1,000 small conflicts simmered. Beneath polite words and forced smiles, nobody noticed the humans. Moving quietly through the crowds, Jisu had positioned her people at every exit. They wore ordinary clothes and carried hidden weapons. They smiled and nodded like servants, invisible in plain sight. If nothing happened, they would look like fools. But Jisoo had stopped caring about looking foolish years ago. In a small room beneath the hole, Mira worked on the station's communication systems. She had found something strange in the old records. Ketera Prime was not built from nothing. It was built on top of something else. The station's foundations contained structures that no modern species had created. Precursor ruins, buried and forgotten. The whole station is connected to their network, she told Do-yoon through her communicator. Whatever they built, it's still here. Still active. Just sleeping. Can you use it? Do-yoon asked. Maybe. I need more time. Time was the one thing they did not have. Do-yoon stood in a corridor overlooking the Great Hall, watching the summit continue. Beside him, Yuna worked on her datapad, refining the translation. The signal was so strong now that Do-yoon could hear it without equipment. It hummed in his bones like a second heartbeat. I found the source, he said quietly. Vareth 9, a dead system 2 light years from here. That system has been abandoned for centuries, Yuna said. Survey teams went there and never came back. They're not abandoned. They're waiting. The first day of the summit ended without incident. The diplomats returned to their quarters, satisfied with their small victories and petty arguments. They did not notice the humans watching them with worried eyes. On the second day, Taiwan requested a private meeting with the summit's leadership. He presented Yuna's research, showed them the signal, explained the translation. The Keth ambassador listened with cold patience. The Vorith representative made sounds that might have been laughter. You expect us to believe that the precursors, who disappeared 3 million years ago, are returning to attack us? The Keth ambassador asked. Based on a sound that only humans can hear? I am asking you to prepare, Taiwan said. To take simple precautions. If I'm wrong, you lose nothing. If I'm right, you save everything. The ambassador shook his head. Humans have always been prone to fear. It is your youth, your inexperience. The precursors are dust and memory. Nothing more. They were dismissed like children telling stories about monsters under the bed. That night, Myra made a breakthrough. She found a way to access the precursor systems buried in the station. They were old, impossibly old, but still functional. And they were connected to something vast, a network that stretched across the galaxy. It's like a web, she explained to the others. Every precursor ruin, every ancient site, they're all connected. And something is waking them up. Can you shut it down? Jisoo asked. I don't know. I don't even understand how it works. But I might be able to send a signal through it. Fight back with our own system. Keep working, Taiwan said. We may need it soon. On the third day, everything changed. Do-hyun was monitoring the signal when it suddenly stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, every screen on the station flickered. Every light dimmed. And a symbol appeared, burning bright on every display dot. It was a spiral with 7 points. The precursor glyph for silence. Panic erupted in the Great Hall. Diplomats screamed in languages that Do-hyun did not understand. Security teams rushed to their positions. And through it all, the symbol remained, watching them with ancient patience. Then the first ship arrived. It came out of nowhere, appearing in space as if it had simply stepped through a door. It was larger than anything Do-hyun had ever seen, larger than any vessel in the Galactic Fleet. Its surface was smooth and dark, covered in patterns that seemed to move and shift. It made no sound. It needed no engines. It simply was. And it spoke. The transmission came on that low frequency, the one only humans could hear. Do-hyun heard every word clearly, as if the voice was speaking directly into his mind. You were not meant to hear us. You should not exist. Correction begins. The precursor ship opened fire, but it did not aim at the station. It aimed at the communication arrays, the broadcast towers, the systems that let the galaxy speak to itself. It was not trying to destroy. It was trying to silence. Jisu's voice crackled through Dahyun's communicator. They're hitting our communications. If they take out the arrays, we can't call for help. We can't warn anyone. How long do we have? Do-hyun asked. Minutes. Maybe less. Do-hyun looked at Yuna. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. She had spent her life studying dead languages, listening to voices that no one else cared about. Now those voices were speaking again, and she understood them better than anyone. The precursors designed the galaxy, she said quietly. They created the other species, guided their evolution, controlled what they could and couldn't hear. But they didn't create us. Humans are an accident. We hear what we're not supposed to hear. And that scares them, Do-hyun realized. It terrifies them. We're noise in their perfect system, and they've come to fix it. Outside, the precursor ship continued its work. More ships were arriving, stepping out of nothing and joining the attack. The station shook as defensive systems tried and failed to fight back. Do-hyun made a decision. Myra, he said into his communicator, whatever you found in those precursor systems, get it ready. I'm coming down. What are you going to do? Yuna asked. Do-hyun looked at the ancient ship filling the viewport, at the glyph of silence still burning on every screen. The precursors wanted quiet. They wanted order. They wanted the galaxy to stop screaming. I'm going to make some noise, he said. The station was falling apart. Explosions echoed through the corridors as precursor weapons tore through metal and glass. Emergency lights painted everything in red. Screams came from every direction, 100 species crying out in fear. And through it all, Jisu kept fighting. She led her team through the chaos, directing evacuations and defending key positions. The alien diplomats were frozen, paralyzed by ancient fears that had been written into their very genetics. For millions of years, their ancestors had been taught to fear the precursors. Now that fear had returned, and they could not move, but the humans could. Get them to the evacuation ships, Jisu ordered her team. Carry them if you have to. We don't leave anyone behind. Her people obeyed. They grabbed frozen Keth and Vorith, dragging them to safety while laser fire burned the air around them. They were not soldiers anymore. They were shepherds, guiding the galaxy's leaders to safety while the universe fell apart. Deep in the station's lower levels, Myra had finished her work. The precursor systems hummed around her, ancient machines coming to life after 3 million years of sleep. She had connected their network to the station's communication arrays. She had created a bridge between old and new. It's ready, she said when Do-hyun arrived. But I don't know what will happen when you use it. This technology is beyond anything we understand. What do I need to do? Do-hyun asked. Mira pointed to a chair in the center of the room. It was made of the same dark material as the precursor ships, covered in symbols that seemed to move in the corner of his eye. Cables and wires connected it to banks of alien machinery. Sit there. The system will connect to your mind. You'll be able to broadcast through the entire network. Will it hurt? Myra hesitated. Probably. The interface was designed for precursor minds. Yours might not be compatible, but it might work. It might. Do-hyun sat in the chair. The moment he touched it, pain exploded through his skull. He felt his mind being pulled in 1,000 directions, stretched across distances he could not comprehend. The precursor network was vast, connected to every ruin and every hidden system in the galaxy. And now he was part of it. Yuna grabbed his hand. I'm here, she said. I'll translate. Whatever you hear, whatever you see, tell me, and I'll help you understand. Do-hyun closed his eyes. The pain faded to a dull roar, and he began to see things. The network stretched out before him like a web of light. He could see the precursor ships, could feel their cold intelligence studying the station. And beyond them, deeper in the network, he could sense the precursors themselves. They were not dead. They had never been dead. 3 million years ago, they had uploaded their minds into the network, becoming pure information. They had watched the galaxy evolve, waiting for the perfect moment to return. And now that moment had come, but something had gone wrong. The species they had designed were behaving as expected, following the patterns written into their DNA. But there were others. New species, ones they had not created. Species that heard frequencies they should not hear. Species that refused to be silent. Humans. They're afraid of us, Do-Yun whispered. We weren't part of their plan. We can hear them, and that means we can fight them. How? Yuna asked. Do-Yun opened his eyes. They want silence. They want order. They want the galaxy to stop screaming and start obeying. He smiled, and there was something fierce in it. So I'm going to give them the opposite. He reached into the network and opened it. Not to attack. Not to destroy. Just to share. He broadcast everything. Every human song ever sung. Every poem ever written. Every laugh and cry and whisper. The sound of children playing. The noise of cities at night. The chaos of markets and festivals and celebrations. He poured humanity into the precursor network, flooding their perfect silence with beautiful, chaotic noise. Above, the precursor ships hesitated. Their weapons stopped firing. Something was happening inside them. Something they had not expected. The uploaded precursor minds recoiled from the flood of human consciousness. It was too much. Too loud. Too alive. They had spent 3 million years in perfect quiet, and now their network was filled with screaming and singing and laughing. It hurt them. It confused them. They could not think. It's working, Myra said, watching her monitors. The ships are pulling back. The attack is stopping. But Do-Yun was not finished. He pushed deeper into the network, past the ships, past the defenses, until he found the core of the precursor consciousness. Millions of minds, all connected, all watching. He showed them humanity. Not their weapons or their ships or their strength. He showed them a mother singing to her child. A grandmother telling stories by firelight. Friends laughing over shared meals. Lovers whispering in the dark. He showed them everything that made humans loud and messy and wonderful. And he asked them a question. Why do you need silence? What are you so afraid of? For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, slowly, he felt a response. Not words, just feelings. Fear, loneliness, a terrible sadness that stretched. Across 3 million years, the precursors had created the galaxy. They had shaped every species, controlled every sound. But they had been alone. So terribly alone. And when they realized they would never find others like themselves, they had retreated into silence. They had stopped talking because there was no one to talk to Dot until now. We hear you, Do-Yun said. We've always been listening. The connection shattered. Do-Yun fell back in the chair, blood running from his nose, his mind burning with exhaustion. But he was smiling. Outside, the precursor ships withdrew. They did not disappear. They just stopped attacking. They hung in space, waiting, watching. Jisu's voice came through the communicator. They're pulling back. Evacuation is almost complete. We're going to make it. Yuna squeezed Do-Hyun's hand. What did you do? I talked to them, he said. I think they listened. The battle was over, but something new had begun. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient minds were processing something they had never expected to find dog voices in the silence. And for the first time in 3 million years, they were not alone. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Kethra Prime. The galaxy had changed forever. The precursors had retreated to the edges of known space, their ships hanging in the darkness like sleeping giants. They were not gone. They would never be gone. But Do-hyun's broadcast had fractured something inside their ancient network. It would take them centuries to reorganize, to process the flood of human noise that had shattered their perfect silence. And in that time, the galaxy would prepare. Do-hyun stood at a viewport on the rebuilt station, watching the stars. He was different now. The connection to the precursor network had left marks that would never fade. Sometimes, late at night, he could still hear them. Whispers in that low frequency, the one only humans could detect. But the whispers had changed. They were no longer angry. They were curious. And perhaps just a little bit afraid. "What do you hear?" Yuna asked, coming to stand beside him. "Them," Do-hyun said. "They're still out there. Still watching. Are they planning another attack?" "No, I don't think so. I think they're trying to understand us." He turned to look at her. "We scared them, Yuna. 3 million years of perfect control, and we broke it by being loud." Yuna smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her since before the battle. "My research is being published across the Accord. Everyone knows the truth now. The precursors designed the galaxy. They controlled evolution, decided what every species could and couldn't hear. But they didn't make us. We're the accident," Do-hyun said. "We're the surprise. And sometimes, surprises are exactly what the universe needs." Across the station, Jisoo was receiving another medal. She hated medals. She hated the ceremonies and the speeches and the way people called her a hero. Heroes did not lose people. Heroes did not make choices that haunted them at night. But she stood straight and accepted the honor, because her team was watching. They had lost friends at Kethra Prime. Good people who had died protecting diplomats who had ignored their warnings. They deserved to see their sacrifice recognized. Even if Jisoo could not celebrate Dot afterward. She found a quiet corridor and stood alone. "You saved a lot of lives," a voice said behind her. She turned. It was Taiwan, older and more tired than ever, but still standing. "Not enough," Jisoo said. "It's never enough. That's the burden we carry." The old admiral came to stand beside her. "But you did something that no one else could do. You protected people who didn't believe they needed protecting. That matters, does it? The precursors are still out there. They'll come back eventually." "Yes, and when they do, we'll be ready." Taiwan smiled, and for a moment, he looked young again. "That's what humans do. We prepare for the next fight, even when we're still tired from the last one." Myra had become famous. She was now the galaxy's leading expert on precursor technology, the woman who had unlocked ancient systems that no living species could understand. Universities across 100 worlds wanted her to teach. Research institutions offered her unlimited resources. Even the Keth, who had once dismissed her, now asked for her opinion with something like respect. But Mira spent most of her time in her lab, surrounded by machines that had been old when the first stars were young. She studied and learned and wondered. The precursors had built things that seemed like magic, and now she was beginning to understand how they worked. "I found something new," she told the others during a late-night meeting. "The network isn't just for communication. It can be used to travel, to move instantly across distances that would take our ships years to cross." "The precursors have been using it to appear without warning," Do-hyun said. "Yes, but if I can understand it, we can use it too. We can go anywhere, see anything. The galaxy is bigger than we ever imagined, and now we have a way to explore it." "And the precursors?" Yuna asked. Myra hesitated. "They know I'm studying their systems. I can feel them watching sometimes, but they're not stopping me. It's like they want us to learn." "Maybe they do," Do-hyun said quietly. "Maybe they're tired of being alone. The Galactic Accord met in full session for the first time since the battle. 47 species gathered to discuss the future of everything. The Keth ambassador, who had dismissed the humans, now sat quietly, his silver face unreadable. The Vorath representatives floated in their chambers, no longer making sounds of laughter. Admiral Taiwan stood before them all. "We have learned something painful these past months," he said. His voice was old but steady. "We learned that we were designed, created, that someone else decided what we could see and hear and feel. For most of us, that is a wound that will never fully heal." He paused, looking around the great hall. "But we also learned something hopeful. We learned that some voices cannot be silenced. Some species cannot be controlled. Humanity was not meant to exist. We were not part of the plan. And yet, here we are." The hall was completely silent. Every eye, every sensor, every form of attention was focused on the old human. The precursors wanted silence. They wanted order. They wanted a galaxy that obeyed without question. But the universe has a way of surprising even its creators. Taiwan smiled. "Humanity has always been good at making noise. And when the time came, that noise saved us all." He looked at each delegation in turn. They wanted silence. "I say we give them a chorus. Every species, every world, every voice raised together. Let them hear what the galaxy can be when we stop fighting each other and start singing together." For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the Keth ambassador stood. He raised his hand in a gesture of respect that his species had not given to humans in 200 years. One by one, the other delegations followed. Vorath and Selmari, Dren and a dozen other species whose names humans could barely pronounce. They stood and acknowledged the small, loud species that had heard what they could not dot in the back of the hall. Do-Hyun watched with tears in his eyes. Beside him, Yuna took his hand. Somewhere he knew, Jisoo was watching from a security post, and Myra was monitoring the feeds from her lab. They had not asked to be heroes. They had not asked to save the galaxy. They were just humans who had heard something strange and refused to ignore it. And that had been enough. That night, Do-Hyun returned to his viewport. He listened to the stars, to the whispers that only he could hear. The precursors were still out there, still watching, still learning. Yuna found him there, as she always did. "What do you hear?" she asked. Do-Hyun smiled. The universe was vast and old and full of voices. Some were angry. Some were sad. Some were afraid. But for the first time in 3 million years, they were talking to each other. "Everything," he said, and somewhere in the darkness, the precursors listened. They had wanted silence. They had wanted obedience. They had wanted a galaxy that never spoke back. Instead, they found humanity, and humanity would never stop making noise.